Hey guys, it's Core Ross and welcome to Boston Rainbow Six Siege. Today we're doing the sound of Rainbow Six Siege, which is something I haven't actually covered in Mythbusters before, which I'm actually amazed by considering how important it is in the game. But it wasn't until recently when I watched a video by NJ Overclocked that I actually realized how the in-game audio system works, and then that suddenly just opened up a whole can of worms for me and I decided to start testing it. So for the last week I've been on and off testing this stuff and try to get in depth on it and try to figure out exactly how it works in some cases and how it doesn't work in others. Now I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how Rainbow Six Siege's audio works, so hopefully it gets you into this video quite well. Now this is an example picture right here. We've got Mira, who is behind that destructible wall over there, and she's shooting, she's moving around. What will happen is that audio will not come from her, but it will actually go through that single door and then to the attacker. So to the attacker's point of view, to their ears, that is where the actual audio is coming from. Now if we actually get close enough to that single door, then you'll hear that Mira's actually in the gym doing all that. But when you're far enough away, it actually sounds like it's coming from that single door. This is something I didn't know to begin with. And now we're going to go in depth with my testing on this. So let's start with my testing setup for you guys here. So I'm going to use Dokkaebi and her phone. So she's actually really handy because it gives a consistent noise all the time that I can use to then test how I hear it. But we're also going to do it visually as well. So if you don't have headphones plugged in, you can actually see visually the left and right channels for the audio, and you can see how it actually fluctuates. So the very first test that I set up was this one, which I thought was really simple. We're going to call Mira, and then Mira is going to hide behind one of these destructible surfaces, and I'll figure out where she is based on sound. And I thought this would be a really simple test. So let's just go through it like I did the very first time. And I thought the game was total fucking up right here. So have a listen. It sounds like she's about there. Right? That makes sense. It sounds like she's just to the right. So behind that second panel, basically. About there. But if I go there, she now sounds like she's there. And it sounds very clear, like she is definitely there. But then if I go there, it now sounds like she's on the left. This was confusing the crap out of me. And it confused the crap out of me for a long time. But now let's go through this all again. But this time I'm going to tell you what's actually going on with the game engine and how it's actually working. So we call her, right? So the audio is coming from Mira. It's now coming from that single door. Mira continues through the double door and then positions herself behind that wall right there. If we actually go up to this, we are hearing Mira on the right hand side, right? So we're hearing her there. And that's because that's where the double door is. The double door is there. And because we're so close to the single door, we don't hear that as a sound source anymore. So we're hearing the double door as the sound source. So that makes a lot of sense. Now as we get closer, so once we're here, we're now both close to the single door and the double door, which is nullifying both of them as signal sources. So instead, we get the source of the audio as Mira herself. So she sounds like she's where she is, which is behind that destructible wall right there. And that is why the audio keeps changing so bloody much. And it's effectively correct in the game engine because it's true. It's not coming from the double door anymore, and it's not coming from the single door anymore because we're too close to both of them. So we're actually hearing Mira as her source. But as we get close to Mira, we now move away from the single door and we're no longer in that kind of influence of that door anymore. So the door becomes the source. That's why we hear her suddenly just no longer there and suddenly she's behind us. That's because that door has become the source of the audio again as it bounces off of her through the double door, then through the single door to us. That's how it's working. And that's why I was so confused and I thought the game was just fucking up. Now I guess effectively it's fucking up a little bit, but I can understand why now. Like the rules that the audio engine is playing by is probably as complex as you could get it without messing it up. So once I figured that out, I realized, okay, we can actually get on with more testing now. So first thing was, I was curious about how much of a sound dampening a barricade has. So listen here. You can hear that the buzzing has definitely been reduced in noise. Mira's now going to move back and go behind the double door. And once she barricades that door, that's it. We don't hear anything else. The buzzing is gone. Once she pulls down the door, we can hear the buzzing again. And if she melees a barricade, the buzzing gets louder. So it only appears to take 2 doors to completely insulate someone sound-wise. So that's interesting. I didn't realize it before, and actually it's quite useful. So that is confirmed. So now we're going to go back to the inconsistency of Rainbow Six Siege's audio with this test that I did. So right now you can hear Mira's phone and it's coming from that doorway because it's bouncing off of her, going to the door and then to our character's ears. But she's right there. So I'm going to tell you exactly where she is so we can see how the audio changes a lot. So if you have a listen, the audio is definitely coming from the single door. But as we move to the top of the stairs, it now comes from Mira. So we can now directly hear her. Now I thought it was because I'd moved close enough to the door, but it's not actually the case. And this is definitely the game fucking up a little bit. And it's probably because it is a staircase. So unfortunately the bloody clock decided to go off, so we're going to have to silence that. So listen to this. We can definitely hear Mira, she's on the left. But I moved just a little bit, and now it's coming from the door. It is definitely coming on the right hand side now. But as I get closer to the door, it goes back to being the left hand side. We're getting into that influence of the doorway. But there's obviously something different when it comes to a staircase. When we're right at the top of that staircase, we can hear Mira directly, whereas we couldn't until we got closer to the door. So there's definitely something fucking up there for sure. That in a firefight, that could confuse the crap out of you if you're trying to spot someone at the last moment. So there's definitely things like that to watch out for. And just to make sure, I did do the staircase above, which is great because it has a doorway that's actually further away. And as you can see, it's further away. We can hear the audio coming from that door. But as we get to the top of the stairs, suddenly we can hear Mira directly. So there's definitely something fucking up there. But she's right there and I can hear her so clearly as she was standing behind that. But let's go over how you can completely not hear someone on our side of the wall just next to you as well. So I decided to go load up the brand new Hereford map. Now the reason for this is I thought, right, house might not be the best one to test in because it's old. So let's go with the newest map, the one that's been built from the ground up, and see. So you can hear from here that we're hearing Mira from the right hand door there. So that's the closest source. But as we get closer to that door, we start to hear that source come from Mira herself. So it's coming from the right hand door. Now it's coming from Mira herself. So this is how close you need to be to a door to override it as a sound source and actually get the proper source or the other door in, depending on how far away that player is. But also you can hear how soundproofed the actual walls are. Like the only buzzing we're hearing is coming from that single door. It's not coming through the actual wall at all. Now listen for the reinforcement. So I was curious, is this going to actually make it more soundproof or less? And as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem to affect it. The interesting thing I found was that Mira windows also don't put any sound through as well. I was kind of expecting them to at least have a little bit of sound coming through, but if you listen, we're still only hearing that doorway. Nothing's coming through that Mira window, and Mira is directly on the other side of that with a buzzing phone, and we cannot hear her. We can only hear that door making noise. Now even on a non-reinforced wall, the Mira window is still completely soundproofed as well. It's quite impressive. Again, listen. We're only hearing that doorway. Crazy. So let's actually switch positions here. So we can hear Mira's buzzing phone. That's what it sounds like when she's standing next to us. We go in, we look at her through the window. And from the audio, you would think that the buzzing phone was coming from another defender. It's only the two of us in this game. So that surprised me, and it did open my open my ears to how this game actually does this. And if Mira goes in and actually smashes her window or opens it, you'll hear the audio completely change. It's no longer going to come from the door, it's now coming from the mirror window. So that mirror window is now becoming the source of the audio. And suddenly we can hear her fine. So that now overwrites the door. So how does sound work with destructible surfaces? So we're going to put some holes in this wall and listen to where the audio is coming from. So the buzzing phone is definitely coming from the left hand side. Like if it wasn't just me and Mira in this game, I would think there's another defender with a buzzing phone. Because it doesn't sound like it's coming from her. Definitely coming from the left. But if we make this hole big enough, it will become a source for audio. So we're almost there. This is just about big enough to do this. And then you hear that? You hear it suddenly coming from Mira and not the door anymore. Definitely coming from Mira now. So that's kind of how big it needs to be. You know, a decent sized hole. So that's definitely coming from Mira. Now if we actually back off a little bit, you can now hear it's coming from the left hand side. It's coming from the door again and not the hole in the wall. Even though Mira is closer to the hole in the wall, the door is bigger, so we're hearing that as the sound source. So it sounds like she is on the left. Even when she moves around, it sounds like it's coming from the left hand side. But she's on our right. So even though there is a hole in the wall, because it's smaller than the door and has basically a smaller sphere of influence, then the door overwrites it and it becomes a source. So that's another thing I didn't realize, and another thing that will probably help me now when I'm actually listening to things in game and realizing how they work. So I did some more testing from my curiosity, and I found something that I thought would be really handy and actually very big tactical advantage. So we've just called Mira and we can't hear buzzing at all. Nothing. You would think that there's no defenders near that window, right? Well, let's go inside and actually take a look and see if there is a defender nearby. So there's Mira. She's actually on the other side of that window. And I could have sworn no one was there. But yeah, nothing. So let's actually smash the glass. So the barricade's intact, but the glass is gone. Now we can hear her. Now we hear the buzzing. So that barricade and that glass stops all of that audio getting through. So that's actually tactically really useful, especially as a defender. You might want to pre-break glass so you can hear attackers outside. And you can hear the audio gets louder when Mira does the kind of the pre-breaking of the barricades so you can fall out. You can see that also increases the audio volume. So you might be able to tell as an attacker if a window has already had some damage done to it that you can't see just from increased audio coming from the inside. So I think that's really useful for both attackers and defenders. Now another thing that obviously perked my curiosity was setups like this where we've got a drone hole and a window. Now we can't hear anything. Now you would think if there's the defender there, you would hear the buzzing phone because of the drone hole. Like it's a pretty decent sized hole. You would think audio would come through it. And it doesn't sound like it. Like we don't hear anyone there whatsoever. It's all quiet. So we'd think, oh, that's safe, right? Can't hear anyone moving around. nothing at all. No phone buzzing. But if you break the glass, suddenly we can actually hear the Mira standing right freaking there. So that drone hole doesn't let sound go through at all. So you may think, oh, I'm pretty safe, I don't hear anybody, but yeah, there's someone right freaking there. So this has really opened my ears to how the audio in Rainbow Six Siege works, and it's completely changing how I understand it. So when I'm playing a game now and I hear someone moving around and I can hear it coming from a doorway, I now know that that's not where the source is actually originating from. That's it reflecting off something else to get there. So if I move closer to that door, I can then figure out where the actual source of that audio has come from, which means I can potentially get easier kills. And also I've realized how as a defender I might want to pre-smash glass so that I can hear attackers moving around outside, maybe getting again an easier kill. It has completely changed how I'm going to play Rainbow Six Siege, and it completely changed how I understand the sound system in Rainbow. So there you go guys, that is me continuing to bust Rainbow Six Siege, and it's been very interesting to get deeper and deeper into the audio side of things for Rainbow, which I've never done before. So thanks very much to NJ Overclocked, who actually perked my interest up with his video, The Truth About Audio. There's a link in the description if you want to go check that out, and thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.